to Smart Rural 4. Thank you for joining CREST, Sustainability West Midlands and Fit for the Future today for our event on transport and mobility in rural areas. We've got some great speakers lined up, including Mann from Fit for the Future, Alan Carr from Sustainability West Midlands. We've got Jamie Cole from the Department for Transport, Vanessa Strange from Lincolnshire Council, Professor Gary Bosworth from Northumbria University, and Hugo Spowers from River Simple in Powys. So just a few points to reiterate before we start today. The session is being recorded, so hopefully everybody's happy with that. Please use a Q&A function to ask the speakers any relevant questions. That's on the right-hand side of your screen. As well as asking questions, for those that aren't familiar with Remo and Quark, and actually I'm not, so learning today, there's an opportunity to upvote other people's questions by clicking on the arrow. So if you look on the right-hand side now, you can see people's photographs. So if you actually click on that the arrow next to their name in the Q&A box, it will upvote the questions. So the more upvoting that particular question receives means it will move to the top of the list and possibly more likely to be answered by the speaker. So it's a really good function of Quark. If you need help during today's session, Vicky and Kat are on hand to help. And if you look at the tables in front of you, they've got stars by their name. So hopefully they should be easy to find. There's also a couple of breaks at 11 o'clock and 12:45 to refuel and network with colleagues. And the great thing about Remo, it enables you to carry on chatting with colleagues during presentations if you wish, although hopefully you're going to be listening to them. But there are several tables to the left of the screen. And if you click on one of these and invite a participant, which you can via the chat and they accept, you can chat to them in privacy at the table, so in fact nobody else can hear. If these tables are full, again, if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you'll see that there's a second floor. If you click this, it will take you up to a whole load more of tables. And again, if you click if you invite a participant and they accept, again, they'll be relocated directly to your table and you can chat in privacy. If you do need more information on Quark today, Mark Ricketts is in the audience and Mark will be very pleased to help. So please don't hesitate to ask him any questions today. Finally, there's lots of banners at the top of the screen, and these are all about the partners who are featuring today, who are collaborating in today's event. So if you need any more information, please click on those. Also, there's the Quark and Remo platforms that are provided by Impact RI. So again, if you're unsure about Remo, please click on one of those and it will illustrate how you move around Remo today. So a really quick introduction from me and some thoughts just to get today moving around rural transport and mobility. I'm Julieanna Powell-Turner, so I'm the Director of CREST, the Centre for Research and Environmental Science and Technology at University Centre Shrewsbury. It's a satellite campus of the University of Chester. It was set up about 3 years ago as a part-funded European Research Development Fund funded business innovation project. So we are mainly ERDF. We're a multidisciplinary team working in the area of environmental sustainability, mainly with a specific focus on smart life cycles in the areas of material, waste, water, energy and air. We offer support to SMEs based in Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin with our partners who are the University of Birmingham and Rees Heath College. And together we collaboratively promote research and innovation with not just within the higher education sector, but as I said, our main aim is supporting local businesses to develop their products, services and processes. So just a little bit about today, and this is really a kind of my reflection on what may or may not come out of today. So I live in the countryside, and today it's beautiful. It's really crisp. It's frosty, and it's sunny. Often it's not. It's often raining here in Shropshire, but today it's beautiful. I know it's got a lot to offer, and like many of us, I really value the quietness and the sense of space and the beauty that surrounds us, as well as the traditions and also the community. But According to the Department for Transport, the pace of social and economic change has altered considerably in areas like this in about the last 35 years. Many rural areas have attracted new businesses and industries, but others have lost essential services. In particular, transport connections, for many of us, are the lifeline. Because it's not readily available in many areas. And I think we all agree that to be responsive to rural needs, that transport needs to be flexible if you have it, so people can move about, and probably needs to be more locally based innovative solutions. For me and my family, transport and mobility were an absolute dominant consideration when we moved to where we are, because we don't have a bus service. In fact, we don't have anything, actually not even the local pub anymore, because that's closed down. So I knew we'd be very much dependent on the car. I'm not sure this is unusual today, but I think one thing we need to remember when talking about transport in particular, and mobility, as it's not simply about improving our own personal mobility, it's about providing access to important services which are less dependent on travelling, whether by car or other means. I think also access to services can impact negatively on individuals in a rural setting, as certainly many people around here, they don't own and don't have access to transport. So actually saying we don't need to think about personal mobility, maybe we do. I think furthermore, the value of other services such as education and health are massively reduced if individuals can't access these through a lack of rural mobility. And similarly, job opportunities as well might be compromised without access to adequate transport services. Personally, and this is kind of debatable, because I'm not an expert in this area, I think rural areas would be much better served if we had an efficient and coordinated multimodal transport system which was capable of linking rural communities with each other and also urban areas, but also saying that, I guess multimodal systems cannot meet all rural public transport needs, and I suspect Gary absolutely agrees with me on that. So maybe we need to encourage a network of complementary feeder services to main routes, or possibly even cater for situations where passengers are fewer widely dispersed, or maybe widen the choice for making those journeys so they can choose between a high quality integrated bus service, for example, or using their own car, because again, often people don't have that choice at the moment. One really successful example of where this has happened is Cornwall, which is another rural county like Shropshire. So that here they've adopted the single ticket and county-wide timetable model. So the ticket covers every trip and every operator across the county. This may be also the case in other areas in the UK, certainly not the case here in Shropshire. And what it would do here, it'd open up the whole transport system to more people, and it would make mobility easier, but easier said than done. I appreciate that. I think also such a system would reduce the number of cars on the roads, not necessarily at the moment in COVID times, because that's a different choice that we've all had to make. But in the future, hopefully, if we had that kind of system, we'd also have fewer carbon emissions, localized pollution, less congestion, and better potential public health. And finally, there's one more thing I'd like to say, if I may. I'd like to consider the contribution of rural transport in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So rural transport and mobility, they play an indispensable role in achieving more than half of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So they're really, really important to what we're talking about today. There actually aren't any dedicated SDG targets on rural access, but there are numerous linkages, and there are linkages to SDG 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11, and 13, I think. So I've put 6 up there on the slide just as examples. So for example, successful scaled up implementation of rural transport can contribute to realising SDG 3, sorry, got that wrong. I can't even read my own slide, it's so small. Realising SDG 3, ensuring health and wellbeing, I'm sorry. SDG 4, providing access to education. SDG 8, promoting inclusive growth and economic opportunities. SDG 9 and 11, contribute to sustainable infrastructure and communities for all. So again, very much what we're looking at today. And 13, finally, increasing climate resilience and adaptation in rural areas. So I think it's fairly safe to say that rural transport and mobility is an essential rural facilitator for SDG fulfillment, but they often don't appear to be directly considered. And although not explicitly mentioned today by all the speakers, they do allude to them in all their outcomes that they're going to be talking about. So on that note, I would like to introduce the first speakers of the day. So we have got Hannah Mann from Fit for the Future and Alan Carr from Sustainability West Midlands, who are just going to give us a little bit of background information on both of their organisations today. Thank you.
Hello. I hope everyone's well. It's really great to be here. Thank you very much to CREST and Sustainability West Midlands for inviting me along and to help us to support this event, which is on a really crucial topic. I'm just here as a representative from Fit for the Future to let you know a little bit about who we are and why we want to support the event today. So I think Kat's got a couple of slides. Kat, could you move on to the next one for me? And I'll just dive straight in because I don't want to take up too much time. Essentially, Fit for the Future is a knowledge sharing network for environmental practitioners from over 90 organisations. We work with the charity sector, the heritage sector, the public sector. We work with arts and cultural venues. So we span a huge range of different sectors across the UK. And the aim is to prevent people from feeling they have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to practical solutions to the climate crisis. So we broker link-ups, we bring people together to collaborate, share best practice, share experiences, knowledge, advice, ideas, and a whole range of sustainability topics. Some of the hot ones at the moment are, of course, net zero, are dealing with waste and plastics, looking at sustainable procurement, and looking at transport and travel, which has become very interesting across the whole of the pandemic. As a lot of our members are visitor sites, have big attractions like, for example, the National Trust, like English Heritage, like the historical palaces, and so they're thinking about this whole issue of transport and travel as they move forward with their business operations and look at how they become a sustainable organisation in the broadest sense of the word. We base our whole premise on kind of practical, honest advice and solutions. So people will know that they're talking to others in the network who are on the same journey as them, who are dealing with the same challenges. It's really about getting under the bonnet to try and tap into those difficult, tricky, challenging areas. It could be looking at boilers and looking at energy efficiency, or it could be looking at how to eliminate single-use plastics from cafes and shops. So it's down to the real nitty-gritty challenges that people are having to work through on a day-to-day basis. I can have the next slide, please, Kat. So what this looks like in practice, if you can see that slide, is that we have organisations from every sector working on very similar issues and coming at it from all sorts of different perspectives. So some examples there, Guide Dogs for the Blind are long-standing members of the network, and they've been trying to understand their carbon footprint data, what this looks like compared to other similar charities and organisations, and how to report on that data. And so they've linked up with organisations like the British Heart Foundation, who are doing the same work, and they've shared that data with one another and have been sharing ideas on how to tackle their Scope 3 emissions. So really good example of cross-sectoral sort of networking, knowledge sharing there. Cancer Search UK, an airport group in Scotland, and the RSTB all working together on plastics. So it's a really kind of perhaps disparate group of organisations, but all working on the same challenge. And then I'd say other things there, such as looking at sustainable face masks, which is clearly a very hot topic at the moment, and looking at strategies for dealing with waste and bringing new waste contracts. So just some examples to give you an idea of how that works. We run a big program of events, so partly why we wanted to support this one today, which cover all these topics, which all our members are invited to. Pre-COVID, we did a lot of practical site visits, so people could go and see firsthand some of these solutions. Now we've moved everything virtually and digitally, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. We have a whole suite of online resources that people can download and share, and we work with some wonderful partners, Sustainability West Midlands being one of them, but also people like the National Lottery Heritage Fund, people like the Architectural Heritage Fund, like IEMA, the Met Office, Julie's Bicycles, so all these really useful organisations that can add an enormous amount of value, knowledge and experience to what we do, and ensure that our members can access that really useful internal insights and expertise from the right people. So that's really some of who we are. In terms of sustainable and smart rural transport, as you say, we have a lot of members based out in rural areas with visitor sites, or some such as the Field Studies Council that operate in very rural locations, the Centre for Alternative Technologies based out in Abergavenny in Wales. Lots of them are trying to find solutions that will enable their business to be sustainable as people come to visit their sites, but also as they go out to deliver their services. And we're really keen to try and continue this conversation to generate ideas that we can take back to all of our members and start to work with them on developing and making a reality. So that's it for the future. Any questions for me or about the network, and please just drop me a question or a message in the chat, and I will pass over to Alan to say some more about Sustainability West Midlands. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Hannah, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be here as well, and great to be partnering with CREST and Fit for the Future on today's event. For those of you who don't know a bit about Sustainability West Midlands, we are a small not-for-profit company. We're based, well, our office is in Birmingham, although I've not seen it for about 9 months now. I trust it's still there. But we operate throughout the whole of the West Midlands region, including the very rural parts of the West Midlands region, the Herefordshires, the Staffordshires, the Shropshires, Warwickshires, Worcestershires, etc. Our role is to support, I suppose, any organisation really in the region with their sustainability agendas. We do that lots of different ways. So like CREST and like Fit for the Future, we run lots of our own events as well on various different topics relating to sustainability. And we also do support for sustainability strategies. For example, we do lots of independent research as well on different topics. So lots and lots of different things. But the core purpose of our role is basically to help any organisation in our region further their work on sustainability, and obviously sustainability in the broadest sense, environmental, social and economic. So if you're based in our patch, but you don't know much about us, please do get in touch and we'll see how we can work with you on various things. We do have a sustainability roadmap for the region as well. This is fairly unique in form. As far as we know, there isn't an equivalent one of these in other regions of the UK. And basically it acts as a framework that any organisation can use to effectively develop their own sustainability goals and objectives. And Julieanna introduced the Sustainable Development Goals in her slides earlier. Our roadmap in terms of its visual look is very much based on the SDGs. It's got the same kind of coloured squares, but it's a West Midlands version effectively. And we have 8 priorities, one of which is clean and active travel. Each of the priorities has targets that we want to see the region develop over the next 10 years, and also various other sort of visions and goals as well. I'll put more information on that in the chat, but you can see how our organisation links in with this whole agenda if you go to the clean and active travel priority. Rural transport is a huge issue personally for me. I live on the outskirts of a market town, which is kind of in between rural and urban, I suppose, but it's a massive issue. I was involved in a campaign to try and restore bus services in an area not all that long ago with limited success, I think it's safe to say. But I know what the impact of not having rural public transport options can do to people, particularly more vulnerable people in society. It has a huge implication. So I'm really keen to hear what speakers today are going to put forward, ideas from the floor as well. We'd really love to hear your case studies and your examples. So please do keep sharing those with us throughout the event today. The final thing I'll say is this time next week will be the SWM annual conference. We've got about 20 spaces left at that. We'll all be focusing on how we can use the positives from the last 9 months to our advantage on sustainability in the region, but also to kind of look at where we need to improve and kind of look at the challenges as well, including challenges around public transport. So I'll put a link in the chat to that event if you're keen to join that. You're more than welcome to do so. And unfortunately, I can't give you a really interesting platform like Remo. We'll be using more traditional Zoom, I'm afraid. But so hopefully that will be okay for everybody. But do join that if you wish to do so. So that's a little bit about us. Great to be here and speak to some of you later on. And I'll hand back over to Julieanna. Thanks very much.
Cool, super. Thank you ever so much, Hannah and Alan. It's really informative and provided a really good insight into both of your organisations. As I said, if you need any more information from either of them, please contact Sustainability West Midlands and Fit for the Future to find out a little bit more about them. And especially the sustainability roadmap that Alan was talking about. It's really interesting model. So next up is Jamie Cole from the Department for Transport. So Jamie has recently joined the department on a 6-month secondment from TfL, sorry, Transport for London, where he's enjoyed 17 years working predominantly in compliance and policing. During that time, he's led numerous projects, many in partnership with the Met. He's been involved in Project Cyclops, which resulted in about 3,000 fewer victims of cycle theft, the Revenue Protection Programme, which saved Transport for London £10 million last year in reduced fare evasion. He's also been involved in a roads and transport role and to enhance road safety in London as well. Jamie is now leading on the Rural Mobility Fund for DST, and he's overseeing the buses division's bid for funding through the current spending review. Today, Jamie's going to talk about transport in rural areas, but he'll also cover many of the recent announcements as well that are affecting rural transport. So over to you, Jamie. Thank you.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can all hear me. Thank you for the introduction, Julieanna, and for the invitation to speak at today's event. So yes, I've only been at DFT for a couple of months, but hopefully that's enough time for me to give you guys a decent insight in some of the recent developments in our department. It's probably worth flagging that I'm a senior policy advisor, working in our buses and taxis division. So predominantly a lot of my examples and references today are going to be referring to the bus network, but I'll try and keep the conversation as broad as possible and as multimodal as possible. If I can have the next slide, please. Right, so if you hadn't noticed, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's fair to say that it's quite hard to remember what life was